This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, eCoffee with Experts. This is your host, Tanmay here. And today we have Barbara, who is the owner and agency principal of 300 Feet Out with us. Hey, Barbara, how's it going?
Hey, it's going really well. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. Barbara, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started, and how did you land in the digital marketing and agency space, and we'll take it off from there.
Got it. Okay. So my background has nothing to do with any of those.
Like
Of
all of
course.
us, right?
Yeah, of course. I started working in operations and I came to 300 Feet Out, which was originally owned by Nina Dietzel, and it was started in 97. So I came here when she needed a head of operations. And when she was ready to retire, I took over.
Mhm.
I know nothing about design or development, at least I didn't. And now 20 years in, obviously, I have a lot of experience.
Okay. And when did you actually, the migration happened to you becoming the
Mhm.
owner of the agency, right? So how it all started, taking that leap of faith into your entrepreneurial journey, what triggered that decision making to start your own thing?
Basically, it came down to I had two choices. I could go find a new job, or I could take something that I'd already spent 6 years doing and trying to see if I could do it on my own. And it was a risk, but what is life but taking risks? And it worked out.
And talking about your agency life, initially there are a lot of challenges, right?
Yeah.
For a business owner, you wear multiple hats. You're selling, you're delivering, you're handling ops, you're trying for recruitment. Trying to build a team. You're handling finances. You're handling books. So what were those like major initial challenges that you would want to talk about for our listeners who are trying to make a mark or trying to start their entrepreneurial journey, and how did you navigate through those challenges?
I think the most important thing is to acknowledge what you don't know. It's really easy for somebody to think that they can do it all because they did one thing well, and then they find out, well, they don't know.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to know what you don't know. So, I had a lawyer when I bought the company, obviously, because she wrote the operating agreement. And through the lawyer, I met the CPA and met the accounting firm. And, it just kind of grew from there. So when you're starting off, the most important thing you could do is build that team around you. You are not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I don't know any of those things. So I needed to build all of those functions. And then when I built those functions, I basically copied what we'd already done. So, when I was the COO, we had a system. I just copied the system and kept going. I want to say 4 years ago, I called it my year of compliance. That system was created, but it wasn't scalable. And so we were running into all of these issues because it was from project management to, if you have a pass-through cost that was a $500 pass-through cost in, 2003, and it becomes a $500,000 pass-through cost, you need to make sure that it's completely, it's in your books right, it hits your P&L, it hits all of that stuff. So we redid our books, we redid our contracts, we redid HR, and rules change, right? So you have to not only grow your business to scale, but you have to constantly adapt to new legislation.
Absolutely. And talk about scaling, Barbara, how difficult it has been, to kind of initially keep the lights on, ensuring that the clients are there, it is all
Yeah.
happening, then recruiting a team. How did it all start? And what are the things that you would suggest kind of keeping in mind while trying to scale your agency?
California makes it a little bit harder to scale simply because, there are a lot of rules around contractors and when you have to employ people versus when you can spot hire for things. So you have to be very flexible and you have to be willing to take on jobs, not knowing if you have the right people when you're little, right? Because you know that you can see if I take this job, I'm going to have to bring on some people and I'm going to have to quickly hire. So having a really good network and maintaining that network allows you, especially here in California, that flexibility to hire as needed. I don't think we would have survived without knowing, different people doing different things who were willing to help and pitch in and come on board with us.
Absolutely. And what are your core offerings as an agency? What is like your bread earner?
So the big jobs we do a lot of brand and marketing. So that's digitally and tactily. So in real life, we make books, we make magazines, we do print ads, but we do a lot of digital because our team is half development. So we have in 2016, we purchased another company that was all development. And what they were
Okay.
doing is that agency was building websites for designers only. So they had all of these design agencies that would hand over their Figma file. Well, they weren't Figma at the time, but hand over their files and they would build them. So we bought them, we brought them in house. And so we do a lot of back end development work and we do a lot of web dev.
And you mentioned about buying another agency which
Mhm.
did dev work, right? So I would like to kind of understand how kind of evaluate that, okay, I mean, this is a business that we should buy and this is going to add value to my existing ecosystem. What are the must haves that you look for in an agency or in another business to kind of make that decision of involving
Right.
or engaging into that agreement sort of a thing?
Right. So the CEO's job is to not focus on today, right? Like, yes, there's part of my job that focuses on today, but most of my job is to build that business plan that's 5, 10 years out and to continually work for it. So I knew that our business needed to have a development portion because we were outsourcing. We had hired this agency to do it, but there were a lot of gaps there. There were project management gaps. There were QA gaps. There were just weird things going on because we were a client. They never said no, even though we made some ridiculous requests. So I knew from our business, especially the way the market is going, the way the industry is changing. I mean, now we have AI, but back then we were moving from designers doing things by hand to doing them on the computer. And I
Yeah.
remember designers who were like, I don't want to use Photoshop. I don't want to use any of those tools. So that progression, like I knew this was changing and I could see it. And so I knew we needed that arm. And so when the availability came to do this, I jumped on it. I had already tried to create it myself by hiring developers to work from us, but I'm not a technical director. And so again, I had to look at my strengths of the people around me and my network. And so we, merged forces.
Lovely. And you touched upon a very important and interesting point of AI there. So, with all the AI generated overviews shaping search now, how do you think brands should think about protecting and amplifying their brand equity online?
I love this topic and it's massive. This is like the big, like you could do an hour long call on where we are with
In
this.
fact, the entire I mean, we are having conferences just talking
Yeah.
about AI all day, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
get you.
yeah. I mean, I'm in San Francisco. It's all around me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And my team and I, we've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of education and we take classes. We do all this so that we stay up on it. Plus it's nice. You can just go to the coffee shop and hear people talk. I think the most important thing that we need to know when we talk about AI is it's the Wild West percent. It is, I checked with AI this morning for this question. There are 151 legal cases on patents and trademarks and ownership right now. And for a brand to maintain what it has and to not get lost in the AI, not to have your brand equity taken and not to have somebody take something that's yours, you need to start making sure you're trademarking everything. You need to copyright and you need to do it for everything you have. So your name, how you look, all of these different things wherever you can, because as these legal cases come through, you want to make sure that you own everything. For search in particular, I'm not sure if you're talking about AI in Google search or if you're talking about Perplexity and Claude and all of these other agents out
Other
there that
elements, yeah.
people are now going to for search. So before we got on this call, we talked a little bit about Google now has this AI. So, we're doing A/B testing on it right now so that we can see if it's working. I mean, since yesterday, we made some changes yesterday. We've already seen a number of conversions but it's one of those things where you're constantly working with it because you're not sure. Brands need to, one of the things that will make sure that you have good AI exposure is good SEO.
Yeah.
So those brands that spent the time and money to make sure that they have the technical SEO, they have the proper content, they have the proper tagging, all of that. They're set up well for bots to search their sites. If you have your H1, H2 tags, you have that all organized, you have your sitemap, you're submitting it, bots are crawling that. And so that's already a leg up on people who haven't done the work.
Absolutely. And you did mention about branding as well, Barbara. So you must be speaking with a lot of businesses, business owners, and brand, their in-house marketing teams. So what comes across as one of the major branding mistake, especially you see mid-level organizations kind of do over and over again?
So probably the biggest mistakes I see are confusing branding with marketing. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Branding it's a relationship. It's long term. It's the why. So when I do a brand exercise, we do brand sprints with clients. And when we do those, I describe it as, why do your feet hit the ground in the morning? Why do you do what you do? It's strategic. It's kind of you're investing in your future when you're looking at the brand, and it's about loyalty. So branding is intentional. It has to be genuine, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't want to say that you're a super hot brand and then it turns out you don't have the time or energy to even do proof of concept.
Yeah.
That's a miss. So marketing is short term. It gains you influence. It does, it's the how. If you take a look at some of the things that you're seeing right now in the headlines. So Cracker Barrel just spent $700 million, right? And their branding was a miss. And the question is, did they do enough? Obviously, that's a lot of money to invest. Somebody signed off on that, right? Hopefully, I'm assuming they did their market research. There are a couple of questions to ask there. Those questions are, one, was changing the brand the thing they needed, or did they need to change their sales funnel? Did they need to charge how they're talking to people? Did they need to change their marketing, not their brand?
Yeah.
And, we'll never know. All we see are the newspaper articles that come out of it. But there are tons of brands that have done this. Gap has had problems. Pepsi's had problems. Tropicana. All of these people, they change their brand. There's so much brand loyalty that people are like, no, you can change your marketing, but changing what you stand for isn't why we buy your product. And at some point, brand becomes this nebulous thing that people believe in. They're loyal to it. You can have some slip ups along the way, but people will forgive you because they know your brand is good. When Nordstrom's walked back their whole, we'll take anything back, no questions asked, it didn't hurt their brand because their clientele knew, they knew that they would still be treated well. They still could have returns. It was just sometimes people ask ridiculous questions and that wasn't on par for the brand. Patagonia had the same thing. Patagonia said, we're not going to do cross-branded sweater vests anymore. The vests that they had that you could see here in San, it was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. Every tech company wanted a Patagonia. Patagonia said, no, we're only going to do B Corps, or we're going to do it, we're going to do collaborations with brands on a case by case basis only. It was upsetting to some people because they couldn't get their vests, but for people that believed in the brand, it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And you have been in business for quite some time now, Barbara. Give us your favorite client story.
My
One that
favorite
is very
client story.
to your heart.
Probably my favorite client story has nothing to do with the client. My favorite client story is when I first bought 300 Feet Out. We had a number of clients that we inherited, right? Because I took over the company. But the first client that I had that was all on my own was the San Francisco Ballet. And we did a lot of arts marketing campaigns. So usually what, arts they do is they hire an agency for a year. You build their campaign. It's all around the city. You build their, any kind of paper that they give out during the show, mailers, all of that. And I had never done a project like that. I hadn't, as an owner, I hadn't done a large project like that yet. I'd done it as the COO. But for me, I remember sitting there holding the proposal and going, no, I'm not going to submit this. And I put it down on my desk. And then I walked out and I turned back around and I came in and I just said, fuck it. I'm going to do this and we're going to take a risk and we're going to see how it goes. And we got the job and I had my network and hired the people and it was fabulous and the work was phenomenal. And so for me, that's kind of a personal growth story, right? As an agency owner, you feel so much responsibility to your team. You feel so much responsibility for your reputation.
Yeah.
That I was willing to not take a risk to play it safe. And you can't do that. That's not your job as the CEO, is to play it safe.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned it. That times you need to kind of step out of your comfort zone and see
Yeah.
where it is. Lovely. Lovely, Barbara. This has been a great conversation, and I can't thank you enough for taking out time to do this with us. Really, really appreciate it. And for audiences, if they want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
You can email me at barbara@300feetout.com.
Lovely. Thank you, Barbara. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.